Reinforcement theory is the basis of discipline systems that use any kind of reward and punishment. There are three principles of reinforcement: positive, negative, and extinction. Positive reinforcement strengthens the original behavior. Here's an example. The student turns in work on time, and the teacher gives the student a written compliment. The student turns work in on time again. The note was a desired stimulus for that student. For this to work, a desired stimulus must be meaningful to the student, something the student wants or needs. The stimulus must be specific and immediate. Social reinforcers given by a significant other are the most powerful reinforcer because they are the only ones that help students reach the goal of self-discipline. A teacher who is seen as caring and as having a positive relationship with a student can be a significant other for a student. When using a social reinforcer like a complimentary note given to a student by a teacher who has a positive relationship with the student, two things are important to remember. First, emphasize effort as the cause of the student's success rather than ability, ease of the task, or luck. Next, remember to use you messages rather than I ones, which puts the responsibility on the student. Examples of this are as follows. You worked hard. Now you have some free time to read the book you've been wanting to read. You must have been thinking deeply to come up with that idea. You have a real knack for adding personal examples to your writing. This makes everyone sit up and listen when you're sharing at group share. You listened carefully to be able to do it so well. Your careful work resulted in a perfect paper. Next in the hierarchy of positive reinforcers is the privilege reinforcer, which is something the student values that isn't routinely given to everyone, such as free time or no homework for the day. Next is the tangible reinforcer, which is something that can be seen or touched. The best type of this lowest level positive reinforcer is a certificate or sticker that is a symbol of good behavior. The next best is when the student maintains a private record of positive behavior. The last resort tangible reinforcer is a prize that isn't connected to the behavior that earned the reinforcer, such as candy. These tangible reinforcers are the least effective at helping students develop self-control. If you decide to use them, always pair the reinforcer you use with positive feedback. As soon as you can, remove the lower level reinforcer and just use feedback. Many teachers use negative reinforcers in their classrooms without realizing they are doing so. Negative reinforcement occurs when we follow a behavior with an aversive stimulus, something that isn't wanted or needed by the student. To avoid the aversive stimulus, the student replaces the original behavior with a new one. The negative reinforcer strengthens the replacement behavior. This is different than punishment because it leaves the student in control. An example of negative reinforcement that many of us could probably relate to might occur when we slow down after seeing a police car behind us in order to avoid getting a speeding ticket. The aversive stimulus is the police car and the threat of punishment. Our new behavior is driving the speed limit. It's my choice to slow down, and I am still in control. If I don't slow down and am punished with a ticket, which is a punishment since I can't avoid it at the moment by changing my behavior, then the threat of punishment is a negative reinforcer that causes me to slow down the next day and the next. Both positive and negative reinforcement strengthen the behavior. Positive reinforcement strengthens the original behavior, while negative reinforcement strengthens the replacement behavior. When using negative reinforcers, we must remember that they need to be meaningful to the student and specific. The student must dislike the aversive stimulus more than he or she likes what it is you want stopped. If the student enjoys being sent to the principal because it's interesting and dramatic, then sending that student to the office will not cause him or her to do the replacement behavior you want. You'll have to find a different aversive stimulus. Another issue with negative reinforcement is that we sometimes forget to specify what behavior we want the student to replace the original behavior with. If we don't want the student to tap his pencil, what do we want him to do? We need to tell him, "Put the pencil in your desk and squeeze the stress ball I gave you to use when you need to have your hands be busy." Some guidelines for negative reinforcers are to preserve the dignity of the student, encourage the development of self-discipline, and have a high probability of being successful. These are all things we need to keep in mind. The purpose of negative reinforcement is to change behavior, not punish it. It's different than punishment because the student can choose to avoid it by changing his behavior. As soon as the student changes from inappropriate behavior to appropriate behavior, the aversive stimulus is withdrawn. We can also use nonverbal responses. These are the least disruptive and should be tried first. They include facial expressions, eye contact, gestures like holding up your hand or shaking your head, removing of distractions like taking away a toy or item that has become a distraction to a young student, waiting for quiet to continue teaching, or the recording of the student's behavior in a way that allows the student to know that you have done so, such as writing on a clipboard. Verbal responses are another method, using the student's name in a positive way, such as, "Cindy, I'll be asking you to respond to the next question." We need to do this in a calm and kind way, not in a passive-aggressive or vindictive way. Reminders, prompts, and cues that can be phrased as descriptive statements, enforceable statements, questions, and choices are also good to use. Make sure that you keep these positive and encourage self-control by describing the situation or framing the choice and leaving it up to the students to respond with self-discipline and good decisions. A descriptive statement might sound like this: "You'll be turning in this work in 6 minutes." Enforceable statements might sound like this: "When everything is cleaned up, we will go to lunch." You could ask a question such as, "Sally, do you know that your classmates are having a hard time getting their work done because you're humming?" And we could provide a choice such as this: "Would you rather work alone or with your group?" Or something like, "You can choose 4 problems not to do." Choices help us avoid power struggles by putting the student in control. Sharing control when we can helps students be more willing to let us be in control when we need to be. Ellen White urges, "Too much management is as bad as too little." The effort to break the will of a child is a terrible mistake. Minds are constituted differently. While force may secure outward submission, the result with many children is a more determined rebellion of the heart. Even should the parent or teacher succeed in gaining the control he seeks, the outcome may be no less harmful to the child. It is not God's purpose that any mind should thus be dominated. Those who weaken or destroy individuality assume a responsibility that can result only in evil. While under authority, the children may appear like well-drilled soldiers, but when control ceases, the character will be found to lack strength and steadfastness. Authentic choices teach decision-making and responsibility. The choice should work for both the teacher and the student. Choices are not a choice between doing what we want them to do or getting punished. Understanding the power of choice is of infinite importance. We were created with the power of individuality, with the freedom to think and act. Since humanity's creation, though, this freedom has been under attack. To some, freedom is a threat or a problem that must be controlled. Freedom, these would say, is a nuisance that leads to trouble. Others, though, see this freedom or power as essential and have gone to great lengths to preserve it, even to the point of shedding their own blood in its defense. This freedom, the power of choice, is the issue of a great cosmic universal controversy that has lasted for millennia. Even though incredible effort and resources have been devoted to eradicating this freedom, it has been preserved. Choice survives. There are some caveats to negative reinforcement, and one of the biggest is that students sometimes choose poor replacement behaviors. Positive reinforcement doesn't have any caveats, so it's preferable. Finally, extinction. When your students exhibit behaviors that you want to have them stop, you can provide no reinforcement, which is using extinction. Ask yourself the following questions about the behavior when you're deciding if this would be a good strategy. Is it a new behavior? If so, extinction is a good choice. Ignoring a student who uses an inappropriate word would be an example of this. Is the behavior an old one or a habit? If so, just know that it will get worse before it gets better, so don't choose to use this approach unless you think you can handle the escalation. Ignoring a 6th grader who is using inappropriate words and who has been doing so since kindergarten is likely to result in an escalation that you will not want to deal with. So another thing to consider is, who is the student's audience? If you are the audience and you ignore it, then it may work. But if peers are the audience and they are reinforcing it, then your ignoring it will be ineffective. Also, we need to think about, what is the intentionality? We don't want to accidentally extinguish good behavior by ignoring it. Reinforce good behavior periodically if you'd like to see it continue. Positive reinforcement is powerful.